Welcome, everyone, to the 20 Mile March podcast. My name is Gabriel Hirschberger, and I'm happy to have my first guest back onto the program. His name is Nomaan Alwi.
Hey,
And
everybody.
hey, yeah, so happy to see you again, man. And you have been on a fitness weight loss journey, and you asked me if you could come back on the show and share about that. So, if that helps one person with their fitness journey, I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. That sounds great. So, um, what's happened to you, man? You look great.
Thanks, Gabriel. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind journey since we last spoke. Since I agreed to be test subject zero for your
Yes.
podcast. This was
Thank
this
you
was
for that.
before. I believe this was before you started calling it the 20 Mile March
That's right.
podcast.
Didn't even have a
Yeah,
name for it. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm happy to see that you've come along this far with your podcast, hanging out with people like Andrew Warner and whatnot. Um, and Yeah, man, it's been a really nice journey since last year. Without going into details right now, because you may have pointed questions later down the line. Um, when we last spoke, it had been a couple of months that I was in the foundation, and I was still, trying to find my footing, trying to find what it is that I really like doing, what it is that I'm really good at, and just trying to find that match, between what I like doing, what I'm good at, and um, try to see if I can make a living out of it. And at that time, when we had that conversation, I was just getting started into my fitness journey. So, um, what really brought about the change was that growing up, I've never really been an athletic person. I've
Uh-huh.
always been obese, and I was married at that time. I was married for 5 years. I had two beautiful kids, a
Mm-hmm.
boy and a girl, and it was just I had a couple of epiphanies last year when I had been diagnosed with fatty liver disease, which is nothing serious, but it sounds serious, I know, but it's really relatively minor, but it's common in people, who are obese. And
Uh-huh.
That was a wake up calling of sorts, that what it is that I'm really doing with my health. So that's what it's one of the things that inspired me to start my fitness journey. And it wasn't until a couple of months down the road when
So I'll interrupt you for a second. So
yeah, go ahead.
at that point, you were kind of okay with just going along with it, with your current weight and health, and what the doctor's diagnosis of the fatty liver disease
Hmm.
um, was when it flipped the switch for you, and when you were like, I
It was
have to do something about this because that
it
scared you.
wasn't it was an epiphany. Yes,
Yeah.
it was an epiphany for sure. It was a wake up calling of sorts. So I had been before that time. I had been struggling with weight loss on and off, but with weight loss for most people, it's a cycle, right? So just like with New Year's resolutions, you get fired up. You go join a gym. I didn't join a gym, but I got inspired to go on a diet, but that obviously lasted a couple of days before I fell back into my old habits. So that would keep
Uh-huh. What kind of
going on and
diet
on.
did you try that you thought would
I
work?
Initially, not a whole lot really. Maybe cutting out fast food.
Okay.
Um, Maybe cutting out eating out at restaurants. But when I was home, I would still have relatively unhealthy eating habits. I'd have a sedentary lifestyle because I work at a desk mostly.
Uh-huh.
So nothing changed in that on that front. I didn't have any activities at that time before our phone call meeting. The period leading up to our first interview, um, I wasn't really active besides just going to my car,
Yeah.
walking out of my car, going to the office. That's pretty much it.
Hmm.
So what was an active? I didn't have an active lifestyle. I had a relatively unhealthy habits, and every time I would go on a diet, I'd make minuscule changes, but really wouldn't go past a certain threshold to actually, uh, for it to be effective and even stick for a long period of time for me to start seeing results.
Yeah. So, did you basically grow up this way in middle school, high school? Were you also overweight and just
Yeah,
something?
it's interesting you bring it up. So I've always had asthma. I grew up asthmatic,
Okay.
and for me, it was very common. So I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, where the weather is really hot and humid. Where at least where we lived, it was also humid because we lived on the East Coast. And for me, it was very common to fall sick or to have a flu every couple of days. So growing up, even because of my asthma, it was very common for me to be taken to the clinic and be pumped chock full of medications,
Mm.
pain meds, antibiotics, whatever it might be. So I grew up uh, that way. And I didn't realize until much later, but this also had an adverse effect on my body because a lot of medications actually
Yeah.
are a cause of obesity as well. I mean, you're in the health field, so you may be able to tell me more about it. But that was one of the things. At the same time, my asthma would keep me from being too active in sports.
Right.
So growing up, I was never athletic. I tried to get my hand in a couple of sports, but because I was never really good, I never really used to get picked in team sports. I used to play a lot of soccer, or get picked in that. Cricket as well, same thing. Uh, so yeah, so
So that asthma,
so,
yeah, definitely
so I
hurt you from, kept you from
team
exercising
sports.
and just playing
Yes,
sports because you were short
yes.
of breath and always sick, quite a bit.
Mhm.
Um, do you have asthma today?
I would like to think I do, but I haven't had a serious attack in like 16, 17 years. So
That's
it's
great.
been, yeah, it's been a long time since I've had a serious. I mean, I still carry my inhaler everywhere I go. In fact, my personal trainer, specifically requires me to have one on hand all the time. And I take, a pump before and after a workout, even though I feel I don't need to, but better be safe than sorry. So I haven't had an asthma attack in a long time,
That's
to
good.
answer your question.
Now, have you ever thought about that your eating is related to a vicious cycle of an emotional and filling a void or in
But
that, you know what I mean?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Eating, was kind of an escape mechanism for me,
Hmm.
because I grew up without siblings as well,
Hmm.
and through high school I changed a lot of schools. Basically from ninth grade up until university, every single school year I was in a different school. So up from kindergarten to the ninth grade, I was in one school where I had the most amount of friends. Then I jumped to another school for 10th grade, another school for 11th grade, another school for 10th, 12th grade, and then I came to university. So, I was telling Ethan about this actually, before our interview when we were talking, that one of our other mutual friends came downtown to visit. I was telling him the same thing. So, uh, growing up, especially in my adolescent years, I was not able to form a really strong knit of friends. And one of the escape mechanisms for me would be eating out, or eating unhealthy foods, eating candy, whatever it might be, right? And even growing up, when I was in
Because
university,
it made you feel better about yourself. It made you feel good about yourself.
yeah, again, like I said, it was emotional eating. So if I was stressed out, I tend to eat more. If I was depressed, I would eat more,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, right? So
Right.
definitely there was an emotional aspect to the eating.
Hmm. Um, so let's go now to you've tried different things in the past. I'm sure you tried a lot of
Hmm.
different things over the years,
I
and
have.
it just but always the weight came back until.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for me, as far as knowledge goes, eat. At the end of the day, it's eat less, exercise more. I mean, I'm like
Yeah, the
oversimplifying it, but
formula, but the formula is pretty basic. That's right. Yes,
right.
you basically have a metabolic a rate that you burn calories in order to survive, and so you need to basically change the equation so you have a deficit of some number, like 500, say 500 calories less, either
Hmm.
consumed or exercised per day, will result in like a pound of weight loss per week, approximately. 7.
Ideally, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
ideally. Right.
That's what you want to maintain. But you have weight loss plateaus and things like that, and then you have
Sure.
to
And
incorporate.
water weight and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, that's all the scientific aspect of that, right? So as far as good nutrition, good exercise, uh, those things, though, all of that information is available online, right? I mean,
Hmm.
you can pay to take courses for that, but regardless, all of that information is available for free online. You can go to YouTube, you can go to forums like bodybuilding.com, which is one of my personal favorites. And you have all these experts online that you can take all the information from. Um, over the past decade, um, which is, I like to think of myself as having been relatively fit up until I entered university. So from that time, I started eating a lot. I didn't exercise, and university life, as you might know, is very stressful. So I had lots of ups and downs, and I really, over the course of a decade, I've put on, I would like to think, close to anywhere between 80 and 100 pounds is what I put
Uh-huh.
on over the past decade. And I'm not including my progress in the past year. I'm saying before I started my fitness journey, that's where I was, right?
Yeah.
And
Are you comfortable with saying how your peak weight and how much you?
yes, I can. I can.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's absolutely not an issue. So at my peak, I was, and I never, I was too ashamed to take down the exact weight, but I can give like a rough estimate. So at my peak, I was definitely over 320 pounds. I would
Uh-huh.
say more like 322 or 323
And
pounds
how
at
tall are
my
you?
peak. I am 5 inches, sorry, 5 feet and 8.5 inches. So like 174, 173, I think, is my
Okay.
height, 173 centimeters.
Okay. And about
So
320, 325 pounds approximately.
yes,
Got it.
yes, but the difference is that my body structure is very different than most people, in the sense that you might just look at my height and my weight and have like a BMI calculation that, oh, your index is like in the 30s or 40s or whatever it might be. But for someone like me, I have a lot of muscle in my body,
Uh-huh.
so my lean body mass is higher than what it would be for uh, an average person my height.
So you're saying you have a large frame, skeletal structure is large.
I would say,
Like
yeah,
small, medium, and large. It's kind of, I don't know, it's a rough approximation.
I would say my lean body mass is definitely more. So, for example, if I, I- so for example, someone in my situation, like in my height, uh, let's say for them, if you're sticking to BMI, I think the ideal weight for them is 180 pounds or so,
Okay.
175, 180 pounds.
Uh-huh.
Because of the way my body is built, for me, my ideal weight is somewhere between 200 and 220 pounds.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I have more muscle than other people.
Gotcha.
But coming back to just going back over the past decade, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was my peak. I was at 323 pounds, and using food as an escape mechanism to cope with the ups and downs of life is what I feel it really brought me to that point where sometimes I think that I couldn't get any worse and just be content with bad eating habits. It wasn't until last year when I got diagnosed with fatty liver disease that that's really when I had the epiphany to go out and start making serious changes in my health.
Yeah. So did you get afraid and did you sort of think about your mortality or did you think about your family or what was it or now or just was it that when the doctor gave you a diagnosis that's when something clicked switched in your brain?
Yeah,
For me,
it
let me
was.
tell you briefly. For me, when I've yo-yoed a lot through a lot my weight issue.
Mhm.
For me, when I have a small frame, I'm 5'8", and I approximately should be about 160 pounds. And so when I hit 200, 205, then each time that happened, I dropped rapidly back down to a lower weight. That happened like twice, maybe three
Hmm.
times. And there was something just about that number, 200 pounds. So meaning I'm about 40, that would means I would usually about 40 to 50 pounds over my really lean weight for
Sure.
my size. You can see my wrists are pretty small. My body, my muscular system is pretty small. So that's just the way I should be for being
Hmm.
that size. So that's for me was the trigger for me, and that always caused me to start going and losing weight. Now I've been able to keep it off, but I hired a personal trainer who helped me learn how to use the gym,
Hmm.
and then also start to eat. I just have smaller portions, and I also tracked my calories. So now I'm very much aware of how many calories are in certain types of food, and I just control it with portion size. And I also just move more, I exercise more, and become much more conscious, and just trying to be healthier. So I've been able to now
Absolutely.
keep it off now for maybe
Uh,
4 years or
uh,
something like that.
yeah, and that really brings back to the point that I was trying to make. I had lost my track, but what I was trying to say is that all this information, right? What you're supposed to be doing specifically. I mean, basically, yes. Eat less, work out more, or whatever it might be. It's more complicated than that, but that's the very basic gist of it. Everyone knows that, right? Everyone knows what's good for them. But in my case, over the past decade, when I had put on that lot of weight, I, tried, you know, trying to go on diets. I tried to go to the gym and stick to it. There was a short period of time, like a couple of months in early 2008, so 10 years back, where I had started going to the gym 5 times a week with a very good friend of mine, who also happened to be a childhood friend of mine. We were in the same class. We went to the same university. So I would go to the gym with him very frequently. And
I lost you.
hey, sorry about that.
Hey, you're back. Cool.
Yeah, I had a phone call come in. Sorry. So where was I? Yeah. So I was saying that for that short period of time in 2008, early 2008, I started going to the gym frequently with a friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine, and I stuck to a schedule, right? So even then, I had cut out all processed foods. I had a somewhat healthy diet going on, and I was going to the gym 5 times a week, 4 to 5 times a week with this friend of mine. And I had lost a bunch of weight during that duration. I would say I was down to somewhere in my 230s at that point in time. So I had lost, you know, a lot of
A
weight
lot of
during that
weight.
time, a
Hmm.
lot of weight. And this was all just based on my own enthusiasm, right? And just going to the gym, running for, uh, for half an hour, and then doing a few weight training exercise. I didn't have a personal trainer or anything like that at that time, but I had developed a few good habits. What happened was in the summer, uh, my friend, he stopped going to the gym. What he did instead was, I mean, he's a very fitness conscious person. But what he did was instead of going to the gym, he started working out at home. He had, like a few, I guess, basic pieces of weight training equipment at home, and he would just work out at home.
Hmm.
And what that did was that kind of left a void in me, in the
Sure,
sense that
your
now,
accountability partner
exactly,
wasn't there. So,
exactly,
so now you had to
exactly,
go on your own.
exactly, and that led to the downfall. So that was a slippery slope, and then gradually I started going to the gym less and less,
Less and
right?
less and less.
And I started eating back all the crappy stuff. So I lost my track really. So that there was a short period,
So
you
you
know,
were kind of showing up for him in a way for the gym rather than for yourself as much. You know what I mean?
it was kind of like a team activity, right?
Yeah.
So I used to go to the gym, you're right, not necessarily for myself, but because my friend would be going, and it'd be like, oh hey, let's hang out. But instead of hanging out, we go to the gym. So that there was definitely an aspect to it. But yeah, so accountability was very huge for me back then, and that's really one of the other realizations I had
Hmm.
in the past year, where I said to myself that, you know what, accountability. Now, the biggest difference between now and back then was that when I moved to Chicago 2 years back, I live about an hour out of Chicago, so it's a greater Chicago area, Chicagoland.
Yep.
So when I moved here 2 years back, I didn't have any friends. I had tons of family and relatives in Chicagoland, but I didn't have any friends, right? And when I said, okay, I have to do something about my health. Okay, great, but who am I going to go work out with, right?
Uh-huh.
So it was that realization where I really had to think deeply about my past unhealthy habits, and for that short duration in 2008, early 2008, why that worked. And that's what I circled in on. Oh, it's because of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, um, at least let me try and gradually work myself up to a level of consistency. So I said, if I can build in consistency, then maybe we can step it up to the next level of accountability and hire a personal trainer. So that's really what happened. So accountability, I definitely feel was something, accountability and motivation was definitely that was holding me back. It wasn't a lack of knowledge whatsoever, but really a lack of accountability and a lack of motivation resulting from it.
Yeah. So this last time, now you've decided that you're going to try to build up that habit again, and create, sort of start setting some goals, some urgency. And how did you do that? Did you set a certain number of times to go to the gym? Did you hire a personal trainer? Um, did you get some more account? Did you get an accountability, someone to work with at the gym? Um, how did you
So,
be successful
so,
this time?
so what I did first was before I started going to the gym, right? Because I had been at that time I had been out of the gym for a few years. So I said was okay. What's easy for me to fix? Being at home. What's easier for me to fix? I said, well, it's my diet, right? So
Yeah.
what are the small, gradual changes that I can make in my diet that I can stick to for the longest period of time? So that's the mentality that I started off with.
Hmm.
Once I started eating clean relatively, then I said, okay, then the next level for me was um, how can we start incorporating some level of physical activity, right?
So one example of your small change in your diet that you made from an
Or cutting out,
unhealthy to a
cutting
healthy
all,
choice?
I would say cutting out refined foods, cutting out sugars, and by sugars I mean white sugar, right?
Hmm. That's a
Um,
big change, though.
it is.
So
I
yeah,
mean, it's minor in the grand scheme of things, but
yeah.
definitely it's one of those changes which is a small change, but something that compounds into something
Now,
much
sugar
larger.
is very addicting, and so didn't your body and your brain, you have
It
a hard
did.
time coming off because the
It did.
chemicals in your brain are used to being soaked in that sugar because it gets your dopamine system fired up.
And really, that's one of the things I realized was I had so many. One of the reasons for that is because your uh, gut balance of your of the bacteria in your gut is so off balance because of years of unhealthy food habits, and you
Mhm.
have so many toxins built in your body, right? That your body is craving for all this poison because you've basically force fed it that for many years now. But when you go and you try to dive more into this from a scientific perspective, your body does not really need all the crap that you feed it, right? As long as your body is getting the right nutrition, as long as it's getting the right micronutrients that it needs, and this is something that I took me some time to figure out. As long as it's doing that, and you've already detoxified your body by that point, then your body automatically does not crave all the unhealthy food items like ice creams and things like that. In my personal case, I haven't had ice cream in many months now. I
Mhm.
would say like I can probably count on my fingers how many times I've had ice cream, like maybe just one hand. How
Yeah.
many times I've had ice cream in the past year since I started my fitness journeys? Because I don't. I mean, if you can come and keep the most the creamiest of brands in front of me, like you can keep tubs of ice cream in front of me, but I just won't have the craving
Uh-huh.
because I've been through that process of gradual detoxification, right? Weaning myself off of unhealthy foods and, incorporating these healthy habits, becoming more active gradually, that now my body is craves for that kind of thing. My body craves more for, um, working out a couple of times a week. My body craves for, uh, kebabs.
Health.
I love grilled meats. So my body craves for that, but I don't crave for candies. I don't crave for ice creams. I don't crave for cakes. So it's really interesting the things your
Mm-hmm.
body tells you sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you started adding in healthier food options,
Hmm.
meats, and cut out the sugars and a lot of the refined foods, which tends to be kind of high in the carbohydrate area and fats and sugars. Um, but it, do you? What else did you add into your diet?
So
Um,
I tried to go diet wise. I tried a couple of different things over the past year, and some things have worked for a duration of time. But because for me, I felt that it wasn't sustainable over the long run, I transitioned into something else. But when I started my fitness journey, I found this fellow in one of our business networking events. He was a health coach, and he said, "You know what? Hey, I can." He never really said I can help you out lose weight. He just said this is what I do, and I added him on Facebook, and then I would constantly see him being active on Facebook, and he would constantly post um, stories, right, of
mhm,
his clients that, hey, we just helped so and so person lose this amount of weight over the past year, over the past couple of months, and a lot of testimonials, a lot of
mhm,
testimonial posts on Facebook, and I kept seeing that, and I had this thing in the back of my head. I said, hey, if this guy has helped so many people, I wonder if he can help me too. So, and that's really how my fitness journey started. So I talked to that guy, and he helped me initially by prescribing me a certain regimen of dietary products. I believe he was involved with the company where um, basically you sell their products, but the health coaching part of it is complimentary. So anyway, I followed that for a couple of months, and actually, I feel that I lost a good chunk of my water weight just by sticking to eating his product. So
mhm,
the good thing about that was that he said, okay, you don't need to stress out about any of these scientific details as far as diet goes.
mhm,
Just eat these products. Like, just as long as
mhm,
you're staying within the ecosystem for companies' food products, you should be good.
mhm.
And for me, that was easy enough to follow, right?
Right.
So I followed that for a couple of months, and I felt like I had made good progress with that.
Mhm.
But you know, uh, the heart wants what the heart wants, the tongue wants what the tongue wants, right? And I
Uh-huh.
felt that what, diet wise, even though I've made a lot of progress, but it's just not cutting it for me because I don't think I can stick to this.
Right.
So
It's
it,
restrictive.
it is restrictive.
Right.
So then what I did was I went on the keto diet, right? And the keto diet was actually great. It wasn't something that I was used to, having eating a high fat diet. But so I transitioned in a ketogenic diet, and I followed that for a couple of months, and that really helped with the weight loss as well. Um, and then, after a couple of months down the road and a few more pounds lost, I hired a personal trainer, right? And when I hired my personal trainer, he was, he has tons of certifications. He even has a few nutrition certifications, but he's not a registered dietitian, so he can't legally prescribe diet plans to me. But he would give
Mhm.
me these certain uh, guidelines, or these tips that, what, this is what I would eat before a workout. This is what I would eat after a workout.
Mhm.
Um, these are the kinds of things I would stay away from. So he'd give me general guidelines, some of which I would already know, but some things I didn't know. So that was interesting. And then what I found was, even with the ketogenic diet, some people can stay with it long term, but for me personally, I felt that I couldn't sustain it long term. So then I gradually transitioned out of the ketogenic diet, and now what I'm doing is essentially following. I still eat clean,
Hmm.
But what I do is now uh, I guess I would call it a slow carb diet. I know Tim Ferriss preaches slow carb diets, but I haven't read the book, so I can't. I don't know if it's the same as what Tim Ferriss talks about, but that's what I'm eating. So it's a very standard. So as far as diet goes now, what I'm following isn't something fancy. What I'm following is what nutritionists, sports nutritionists have been recommending for the longest amount of time. Where, for example, for anyone who's listening to this, and I have an Excel sheet as well where I keep a track of these calculations. So once you figure out what your total daily energy expenditure is, right?
Hmm.
And you then basically uh, then basically the amount of protein you're eating per day is like zero point 0.8 to 1 time your lean body mass, I think. And then the fats that you're eating are like a quarter to half times your lean body weight. And then the rest of the calories are coming from carbohydrates, which for me, they're like 250, not 250, but they're like close to 300 or 320 grams of carbohydrates, which is so far out. It's like 10 times what a ketogenic diet would allow. But because I'm working out so intensively, I work out now 5 times a week, 5 to 6 times a week.
Hmm.
And because I work out so intensely now, I felt that, what, the ketogenic diet just wasn't cutting it for me because I really actually needed to incorporate carbs to give me that fuel to uh, do those intense workouts. So as far as diets go, I've had a whirlwind journey diets on the diet side of things. But at the end of the day, what it is quite simply cutting out all the processed stuff, eating whole foods,
Hmm.
going as natural and as organic as possible. So one thing I didn't know this before I started my fitness journey, but there is proper science behind organic food. Some people think that why should I pay so much for organic foods? But um, some fruits, it's worth paying that extra amount of money to buy them organic because strawberries, for an example, they are very susceptible to absorbing all the toxins from pesticides. So, when you're not buying organic food, there is a risk that, the food that you're eating has been contaminated with pesticides. So some foods are more resilient than others, but, it was very interesting when you try to go into the science behind it.
Hmm.
Some things you find out that you never knew about before. Same thing with milk. Like the milk that you would normally get in the markets has been treated with so many chemicals that it essentially has lost its nutritional value so much that they had to artificially now inject it with vitamins and things like that. Whereas, if you go to a farm and you buy, milk from there, it has all the nutrients. It hasn't been processed so much. So yeah, it's definitely on the diet side, cut out all the processed stuff and try to eat as natural as possible.
So tell me, what are the numbers then for your weight loss here? Where are you at now?
I am at, as of this morning, if my weight scale is to be believed, I'm in the high 260s. So like 269, 270, that's where I've been oscillating for the past couple of days now. But I have lost over 50 pounds since the last year. And that's really what I like to tell people that for the
Hmm.
past year, I have lost 50 pounds because at my heaviest, I was over 320. Like even when I went in my doctor's office, he did very recently, because I had sprained my ankle a few weeks back. So I went in my doctor's office and they took my weight and the nurse looked at it and she said, "Oh my, you lost quite a lot of weight, haven't
Yeah.
you?" So
Wow, that's so
yeah,
good. I bet
yeah,
that felt amazing.
it did. It did.
And so what's the average per month then? Did you calculate that?
Uh, no, because with weight loss, it's not like a linear graph.
Hmm.
It's not a linear progression, right? Because as you may already know, when you start losing weight, you lose a lot of weight initially. The easy weight comes off because that's your water weight, right? And
Hmm.
then when you go into fat loss, and that's something that's more gradual. But as you were mentioning before, ideally you want to be losing point like half a pound to a pound, sorry, a pound to 2 pounds body weight per week,
Hmm.
ideally. But this is again keeping in mind when you actually are losing weight, because it is very natural to be stuck in a weight loss plateau.
Hmm. So, how have you noticed your changes in the way that you? There's lots of different ways to look at it. One is like, how has it made it easier for you? Have you
I have
noticed?
I, I have a very interesting story. So I was actually mentioning this to a couple of friends a few days back, but um, you know, your weight is a number on a scale, right? Just because you see it not coming down does not mean you're progressing. Like you might be losing an inch off your waist, right? But your
Right.
weight scale isn't going to show that because of water retention and whatnot.
Hmm.
So when this transformation started happening, how I knew I was on the right path was this way, right? I had a belt that I was using. Uh, I think I started off with, I would normally, like at my heaviest, I would only wear it down one notch. That's gradually increased. The number of notches that I had to tighten it up with, that started increasing. So first it would be one notch, then two notch, then three notch, so much so until that I had ran out of notches.
Wow.
Right. So then what I had to do was I had to go down to a smaller belt, something that actually I would use when I was a teenager. Right. That's why I was injured when I was in high school. The belt that I would use then, because I was slimmer back then, I
Yeah.
started using that belt. So the same thing with that belt. Started off with one notch, right? Then two notch, then three notch. Now I believe I'm down to like on a good day, I'm down to like the fifth notch even, and there's like two more notches to go down. So that's like
Wow.
measurement is really the best indicator of progress, and that and wearing clothes. So you know, when I was in Chicago on Sunday with Ethan and Marcus, other foundation alumni, uh, I unfortunately my wardrobe is still suited to the old me, right? Like
Hmm.
when I was at my heaviest. So I have so many clothes now that are very loose fitting. So
Hmm.
because I was in a hurry, I picked out the nicest looking shirt, but that shirt was for this 3XL size, right?
Yeah.
Now I would say I'm like between, I can wear XL shirts as well now. So
Hmm.
like I was wearing a shirt that was like two sizes bigger than me, and I actually displayed it. I said like, I mean, it's a
Holding it
different,
up.
but yeah,
Right.
it was like I can fit another one of me in this shirt. Is that is that big? And unfortunately, when the picture of that beanie was taken, I look much bigger than that. Is because my shirt is actually that big.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that has really been the best indicator uh, for me, you know, belts. So the more notches I have to tighten up my belt with, that's how I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah. Have you noticed your heart is feels stronger and you're out of breath less, or have you noticed that it's just easier to get up and down the stairs and out of bed because you're
And
stronger?
endurance, yes, that has definitely improved endurance and stamina. I can now. I actually posted it on my Instagram and Facebook a couple of months back, where I had a personal challenge to myself. Right, I said, okay, I've been training with my trainer the past couple of months, but you know, we never. He starts me off with a few warm up exercises, some stretching, and then he has me, you know, basically do like a jog slash sprint on a treadmill. But we never go over 10 minutes on that. So I said to myself, okay, I've been doing this for the past couple of months. I wonder if I have the capacity to run a mile.
Hmm.
Walking, yes, most definitely. I can walk a few miles. That's not an
Hmm.
issue. But running a mile and seeing what my mile time was, that was like something I was very interested in finding out.
Hmm.
And I had never done that before, right?
Hmm.
So I said, okay, let's. So I just went to the gym uh, in my home community, in my townhome community,
Hmm.
and I said, let's see what happens. And I had estimated my mile time to be like between 15 minutes and 16 minutes,
Hmm.
but I ended up just over 13 minutes. So I had
Wow.
actually overshot. I had actually underestimated myself. So
Hmm.
that was like a personal achievement for me.
Amazing. Hmm.
Even though 13 minutes for some people they would say, "Oh, I can run a mile." Like I have a friend, he can run a mile in like under 5 minutes, right?
Hmm.
But those guys are, again, you have to keep in mind that everyone's different. Like the guy I'm talking about, he's probably lean, like maybe 150 pounds, 160 pounds, maybe, or even less, right?
Right.
So he's probably much leaner, right?
Right.
And he's never, because the friend that I'm talking about, he's very athletic, he's very lean. But me, because I'm so much more muscular and I have so much more weight behind me, for me to actually be able to complete a mile run in 13 minutes was, a huge personal achievement, a huge milestone
Mhm.
for me. So to answer your question, definitely, after this much weight has been lost, the possibilities that have opened up to me, even in my present, uh, present, body, I feel that there's so many things that I could do now that I couldn't have done last year.
Yeah. You should reward yourself with some clothes that fit you really well. Small.
I actually placed an order for on Amazon for a pair of jeans, which I think would be a much better fit.
Yeah. Yeah. So how much more do you want to go, and when do you think you'll get there, based
So
on
I
your calculations?
so as I was mentioning to you, for me, my ideal weight is between 200 and 220 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So my lean body mass is 190 pounds. So if you go with the 10% body fat calculation, like 210 pounds is probably my ideal weight. But I would be happy if I was in the 220s. So right now I'm like 270, right? As a rough estimate.
Mm-hmm.
I want to lose 50 more pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how long that'll take. I don't know if it'll take 1 year, if it'll take 2 years, but that's my personal goal. And I'm confident that if I can stick to my training regimen and my diet, do nothing drastic, but, just let the compound effect manifest itself,
Yeah.
that I will get there. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when.
Right. Right. Yep. And that you start noticing all the benefits that you and keep the benefits that you have, and looking better. People commented about how good you look.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
actually, people have like this was back in October, a couple of months back, when I was on the keto diet for a couple of months, but at that time, and I had already lost a good chunk of weight. Um, I went to this family party. It was actually someone else's wedding, but I had worn some clothes and I looked good, right? And I
Hmm.
went into this wedding, and like all some of my relatives would look at me and compliment me on that. So that actually made me feel real happy.
Hmm.
Even though I like to think that I don't necessarily require social validation, but that plays a huge role.
Hmm. I've noticed you've used your Instagram feed to document a lot of your fitness journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That was that before I started. So before I started my before I hired my personal trainer, I didn't have a lot of pictures on Instagram, and even Facebook. I was just using it, to post news articles and videos, and how everyone else around you would use them, right?
Uh-huh.
But then I hired a personal trainer, and then kind of just thought, hey, it'd be cool if I can post a workout video of mine, right? And I started posting my first workout video, which I believe was me doing a lat pull down. And then every time I'd go for a workout, I would post. I would have my trainer record me doing like a unique workout,
Hmm.
and that continued happening for a few workout sessions, then a few weeks, then that in the months, and then what happened was that kind of sparked this effect where, and thank you for bringing up, but I kind of did that to bring an aspect of accountability
Hmm.
into my, my fitness journey, where it's okay. I'm not necessarily posting it to show off because there's someone who's much better looking than me out there who does this, as a profession. I was just doing it because, hey, I thought maybe some of my friends might like to see it. And if for whatever reason I start doing it, people will come and ask me, hey, what happened? So that would then inspire me if I ever was to go off the rails. That would serve as a reminder for me. So that's
Yep.
why I started doing it, and it seems to have had a nice, an unexpected effect in my friend circle, where people who I haven't spoken to in years would come out of the shadows and send me private messages saying that, "Hey, dude, uh, you know, great job. Keep going with your workouts."
That's
I had
awesome.
a friend from London, England,
Hmm.
actually messaged me a few months back saying that, he's an athletic person himself. Um, Growing up, we went to the same school, and he was into sports. He was a tall person. He was into tennis. I remember he was a tennis freak, and he sent me a message saying, "Hey, dude, your workout videos are inspiring. Just so you know, I hadn't been to the gym in the past 2 years, but looking at your workout videos and inspired me to go and take action." Uh,
Great.
that was one message. Another message I received very recently was someone who I consider my mentor, one of my mentors. He logged on Facebook and sent me a message. He said that, I rarely use social media, but I specifically logged on to just send you this message that, uh, your workout videos and posts have been very inspiring. I myself got diagnosed with fatty liver disease very
Mm.
recently, and I also
Mm.
hired a personal trainer, and I have been using basically your workout videos as sort of a template. So
Wow.
I never expected that kind of response,
Right.
from people, because I mean, for me, it really works to uplift my self body image and my self esteem and confidence, because these are issues that I struggled with severely over the past couple of years. Because as I mentioned, I grew up out of sports, and I'd be generally the fat kid in class. So
Yeah.
that's how I grew up as. So, having people like that just message you out of the blue, that's a really good feeling.
Good for you, man. That's great. Inspiring others. So yeah, so I want you to give a little summary now of kind of like the minute overview of kind of like the things that did worked for you this time, and speaking to somebody who's just like you, because there's lots of people that are just like you out there, and
Sure.
and you found a formula that works for you. So I'd like for you to just quickly summarize that for
Sure.
people that
Sure.
just like you.
Sure. Thanks, Gabriel. So before I go into that, let me just tell you where I'm at now. So uh, currently, I already talked about my diet, the kind of diet that I'm following, and I work out 5 to 6 times a week. Um, and I plan to continue this workout regimen and this diet regimen for as long as I can, see until I eventually arrive at my results. I might scale up and down, but we'll see how that goes. But uh, just one thing I wanted to talk about was that when I had all these people sending me these congratulatory messages and these, thank you for posting this, or thank you for motivating me to go and improve my health, that just kind of struck a light bulb in my head, where this was all happening without me even trying to go and help people, right? All I'm doing is just I'm sharing my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what would happen if I now tried to go and uh, specifically do this, right? Specifically go out and help people who are in a similar situation as I was in a year back. Uh, and I feel like I have really nailed on what the issue is. I would say, for someone like me, someone who's South Asian, coming from a background that, eats carb heavy, who has a carb heavy diet. Um, what are the things that worked for me? There was a lot of trial and error that I had to go to. So there's specifics on that front, but what I feel I have nailed on is the issues why so many of us in the South Asian community are struggling with this, because um, it has to do with mindset, right? That's really what I've
Mm-hmm.
nailed on: mindset and motivation. If someone can get past this obstacle, and this is something that this was the first module, if you remember, of the foundation as well, mindset, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the same thing applies in fitness as well. If we can get past the mindset as to why we are in the situation where we are at now. You know, are we an emotional eater? Are we a stress eater? If you're a smoker, are we doing it because you know, we're stressed out most of the times? Whatever it is, right? And you know, taking small, gradual, consistent steps to rectify that situation. So what I've done is I've developed a 6-week program to help, you know, other South Asian males. Sorry, ladies. This is the reason why I mentioned this is because I'm not a certified nutritionist. I'm not a certified trainer or anything like that. But what I
Mhm.
feel is this mindset, the motivation piece of fitness is something that would be hugely beneficial to other males of South Asian, not necessarily South Asian, but the reason why I mentioned South Asian is because I can relate to it really nicely. And I feel that I can help these folks, you know, better their health so that they can go out and become better dads, better husbands, better employees, better entrepreneurs, you know, uh, uh, be just improve all these facets of life that are uh, has an invisible connection to health. Because some people might think, you know, health has nothing to do with this, but you know, health gives you stamina, health gives you endurance, health gives you mental focus and clarity. There's just so many things. There's so many doors that being in good shape opens for you that you wouldn't know otherwise,
Mhm.
right? Even people start to take you more seriously and start to see you as being credible, someone of authority, if you're healthier vis-a-vis as someone who's not healthy. I mean, you're in San Francisco now, so when was the last time? How common is it for you to see a public speaker who's out of shape?
Right. Sure.
Right? So that's a huge piece, and I honestly feel like I can help someone like me. So I've developed a 6-week program to help other South Asian males get past this mindset and motivation piece. And by the end of it, what I'm guaranteeing you is at least I've helped you get to a point where now you've developed small, consistent habits. You can now go and hire a personal trainer. You can now go hire a nutritionist. I can give you that information, but I'm not certified to do so. What I'd like instead to help you is with getting over the mental roadblocks, right? Because if you can get past the mental roadblocks, then man, anything is possible. You know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah. How do people get access to that?
So what I've done is you can go and follow me on Instagram. I will be sharing my information. You can share my information later, but
Yeah, I can put it in the show notes. Yep.
My Instagram handle is at arch rival Neo. Don't ask, don't ask. And you can find me on Facebook as well. I am in the process of launching my website soon. I recently came across a domain which I don't want to reveal yet, but I feel that that is the perfect fit for my brand. So, you know, when it's ready to launch, I will notify others. But in the meanwhile,
Hmm.
please, you can get a hold of me on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook Messenger is, I feel, the best way to stay in touch with me. So, Gabriel,
I'll put the
yeah,
links in the show notes for you.
yeah,
Make it easier for
yeah,
people to find, for
yeah,
sure. Cool, man. That's great. It's great that you're now able to help those people that are like you, with mindset, and that's a really beautiful thing, for sure. And that's great that you found this thing that you're passionate about. And
yeah.
congratulations on losing 50 pounds. And
Thank you.
you're on your way to 210. And so the working out 5 times a week and eating that was it low carb we called it, or low
Slow carb, slow carb.
slow carb.
Yeah, which is it's a typical sports nutrition diet. I mean, you would probably know about more about it, but yeah, it's what all the personal trainers recommend.
Great, that's
Yeah,
great, man. Well, you look amazing, and
thank you.
I'm so happy for you. And I think you're. I want to give you a lot of props for the amount of work and dedication it is, because it's no easy task running a mile in 13 minutes when you have, that much mass in your,
Yes, yes.
so your effort is actually higher than somebody who's can do it with ease, who's lean, and so yeah. So yeah, you're putting that effort into it, and it's showing for sure. So I love your commitment to yourself and to your health. And
Can I ask for a favor, Gabriel?
sure, man.
If you still have the recording of our phone call last year, when you're posting this online, I would really like if you can make for me a comparison photo, like a
Yeah.
screenshot of mine from
Hmm.
last year and a screenshot from this, interview now, and the difference will be very apparent to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll try to dig that up if I have it. I'll like make do a screen capture of it, and I'm sure it'll be dramatic. So, anything else, my friend?
No, I think my wife has put the kids to sleep. So
Yeah.
now, yeah, now I gotta get some time with my wife. So
Oh, cool. All
yeah,
right, so I'll have the information in the show notes for you if you want to contact Noman and work with him, and he can help you with that mindset piece, because he understands where you're at, and so if he sounds like someone who's speaking to you, and you've tried a lot of things to go out and reach out to his Instagram account, Facebook message, note him, and he would be happy to help you out, I'm sure. So thanks for listening, guys. Share this with somebody who you feel would benefit from it. This is a 20 Mile March podcast. I interview marketers and entrepreneurs and share their stories. And so leave a comment. Let me know how I can improve the show. So thanks for listening.